The Trinidad, in her day of sailing, she was a friend to one and all. She never once ever hesitated to answer all SOS calls. And yes, well, she always did her best to help out those in distress. Now it's so sad to see she's in difficulties. Though she helped cheer, some of them cheer and sarcastically declare, Captain, the ship is sinking. Captain, the seas are rough. We gas tank almost empty, no electricity. We oil pressure reading low. Shall we abandon ship or shall we sit on it and perish slow? We don't know, we don't know. Captain, you tell me what to do. Whoa, whoa. If only there was something I could have done to restore the credibility of this beautiful vessel. Money's no problem. Now there's a lot of fingers pointing, suspicion running strong. Who's to be blamed for all her failures? Who's to be blamed for doing her wrong? Now please remember I'm warning you, for to the air she had the same crew who hold the keys to her vault. So we know who's at fault. Now it's up to you, it's up to me to make her worthy to go back to sea. Captain, the ship is sinking. Captain, the seas are rough, oh yes. We gas tank almost empty, no electricity. We oil pressure reading low. Shall we abandon ship or shall we stay on it and perish slow? We don't know, we don't know. Captain, you tell me what to do. We don't know, we don't know. Captain, you tell me, oh yo yo. We don't know, we don't know. You tell me, oh. From the Trinidad, location 7 miles off the coast of Venezuela. SOS, SOS, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Help! Help! The Trinidad, a luxury liner, sailing the Caribbean Sea. With an old captain named Eric Williams. Oh yes, it's smooth and free. But sadly Eric Williams passed away. The ship hit rough water that day. Someone turned the bridge over to a captain named Chambers. Me blood crawl, things start to fall. Hold me head when I sail a fall. Captain, the ship is sinking. Captain, the seas are rough, oh yes. We gas tank almost empty, no electricity. We oil pressure reading low. Shall we abandon ship or shall we stay on it and perish slow? We don't know, we don't know. Captain, you tell me what to do. Whoa, whoa. A beauty with wealth that few surpassed, and in her day she sailed majestically. There were few in her class. Faithfully she fulfilled her sailor's need. Some were overpowered by greed, and so they pilfered slow. Some took bite, bulk and go. Now she looked dull, she's at a lull. She could barely sit on her hull. Captain, the ship is sinking. Captain, the seas are rough, oh yes. We gas tank almost empty, no electricity. We oil pressure reading low. Shall we abandon ship or shall we stay on it and perish slow? We don't know, we don't know. Captain, you tell me what to do. Whoa, whoa. The Trinidad, in her day of sailing, she was a friend to one and all. She never once ever hesitated to answer all SOS calls. And yes, well, she always did her best to help all those in distress. Now it's so sad to see she's in difficulties.
Yes, indeed, of course, a pleasant good night to all and sundry on this, of course, the first day of the week. The weekday, of course, a Monday of the corridor transformation. Of course, we had a wonderful time this morning on the ground report. My apology, of course, for last night abrupt ending, but it was due to circumstances beyond my control. In other words, technological, should I say, interference. But that being as it may, because normally I would want to end, of course, the Sunday night program with a medley of spirituals that, of course, will give us, of course, the vibes, for want of a better term, for the coming work week. Unfortunately, that wasn't to be. So don't believe that in any way it was, of course, an error in my etiquette or my inability, well, I should say is as a result of my inability to, of course, do what I normally would do, and that is, of course, respectfully say good night and goodbye last night. But that being as it may, we are back tonight, and of course, we have a bumper program as per usual. Yes, indeed. Is it that this ship has sunk, or is it sinking? Under the Rowley administration, and having, of course, done all that damage that and initiate all that pain, agony, distress, he then, of course, passes it on to somebody who, of course, is willing to accept that dangerous mission of further, of course, destruction to Trinidad and Tobago. We will look at that tonight.
From the Trinidad, location 7 miles off the coast of Venezuela. SOS, SOS, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Help! Help! The Trinidad, a luxury liner, sailing the Caribbean Sea with an old captain named Eric Williams.
Yes, indeed, of course. A pleasant good night once again to all and sundry.
In the decision that was taken to place Trinidad and Tobago in a state of public emergency.
The declaration and the calling of a public state of emergency is not something that should be taken lightly, or something that this government certainly takes lightly at all.
One last thing. In 2012, when the Prime Minister would have occupied the opposition benches at that time, he made a statement then that if the government...
The rationale and the purpose that we would have considered in the decision that was taken to place Trinidad and Tobago in a state of public emergency.
The declaration and the calling of a public state of emergency is not something that should be taken lightly, or something that this government certainly takes lightly at all.
One last thing. In 2012, when the Prime Minister would have occupied the opposition benches at that time, he made a statement then that if the government can't deal with crime, then the government itself is part of the problem. It's 12 years later, and we're seeing, of course, the problem is worse, and we're seeing higher, murder stats. And Dr. Rowley, by that standard now, can you say, sitting there, are you willing, I mean, as Minister of National Security, can you accept that pronouncement now? Because we're seeing the figures going up. We're seeing that fear, I mean, the trauma, the fear is there.
The government has been looking at all of.
So notice, of course, the obfuscation. I didn't want to put in that because I thought it would have been too painful for you, as it has been for me, of course, to evaluate and look for the information that would have been the response to that very important question. Because you see, Hines did not, nor of course Young did not respond. They went on, of course, to deflect attention to somebody else saying something, but never directly in terms of addressing that problem that Rowley said that if, of course, the government cannot address the question of crime, then, of course, that government under whose, of course, tenure the crime situation has ballooned, has, of course, exacerbated, has proliferated, has been, of course, out of control and intractable. But Hines offered no answer to a very pertinent question. You see, they want, of course, to have the cake and eat it. They want to make these statements on principle and whatever decreasing integrity and sanity that they may have, whilst the population is clearly convinced that is a bunch of opportunistic political parasites who would have said anything to be where they are. And now, of course, the test, the acid test is now, of course, unfolding before them. They have no response, and therefore they either remain silent, they run, or they give you some asinine explanation. And we have heard, of course, on the question of crime, we saw where, of course, people, the government was saying they have no plans, and that is not their job, it's for the police. But they had a 10-point plan before they came into government, though, in 2015. Before 2015, they had a 10-point plan. And suddenly, that has been abandoned, and they put in the responsibility on the police, they put it, of course, on the gangs, and they put it on the parents, and they put it on the church, and they put it, of course, on some kind of amorphous health issue. Crime as a health issue. And so, of course, you have to be, of course, responsive. You have to reciprocate that nonsense talk by telling them, well, are you saying then that when a fella point a gun at me, loaded, of course, and he discharges the bullet, that you go to the nearest pharmacy or the nearest drugstore and, of course, buy some kind of tablet in order, of course, not to get shot? That's what you're saying. And then, of course, even when you implemented the SOE, as is the case now, over the weekend, of course, 2 double murders. And then, of course, as if that was enough, on the Betham, police chasing, of course, some car thieves, as they say. And then, of course, a woman got shot and died inside the house where she was, of course, engaging in whatever activities that they assembled to engage in. And more than that, I understand there were 10 people who were in that particular house. So more than one death could have occurred. That is where we are under the Rowley administration, in a state of emergency. And they have the audacity, the temerity, the gall, and the effrontery to criticize Kamala Prasad-Bissasa's state of emergency only because they had not yet implemented theirs. So they could talk from here until I wouldn't say thy kingdom come, but I will say into deep hell. Because that is where these people are destined and must, of course, reside ultimately. They are almost in a state of purgatory. They are suspended between, of course, hell and on their way down. You cannot tell me that this level of evil, this level of deception, this level of wickedness, and this level of barbaric conduct, and the abuse of their officers and the resources of the country can be contemplated or indeed countenanced by not just the society, but it cannot be executed by people who are really committed to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, because it's clear that they are committed only in talk, cacophonous babblings, and ambulatory, of course, verbalizations that makes no damn sense. Let's start over, of course, the rationale, and then we'll go on to Rowley, when, of course, as Prime Minister, indicated that our SOE is almost an impossibility for the PNM. Just as how engaging in property tax was an impossibility for the PNM, and the interfering or the adjusting of subsidies as an impossibility for the PNM. Yeah. And that, of course, that is brought up by the fact that they told us, and they did it. They reduced VAT from 15% to 12.5%. But we have learned that there's always something sinister, something evil lurking behind every single statement and or policy as it is unraveled or it is worked out or it is implemented. And in the case of the VAT from 15% to 12.5%, they never told us, typical con men and women, they never told us that the 7,000 items that were not attracting VAT under the UNC and Kamala Prasad Bisesa, a substantial amount of these items would have been, or put another way, VAT would have been placed on them. A bunch of con men. Let's hear them again as they give us, of course, that state of emergency. Of course, tonight we will conclude the evaluation of 2024, but of course we will do that in the context of a microcosm of what the Rowley administration has done over the last 10 years by Kamala Prasad Bisesa, that we were engaged in when, of course, unfortunately, we departed each other. But tonight, of course, we are back solid as a rock. Let's hear both Hines and Stuart Young. And then, of course, the Prime Minister indicated they will never engage, of course, in a SOE to address crime. And then again, in opposition, say no, crime ought not to be a candidate for a state of emergency. Just imagine that. Crime ought not to be a candidate for a state of emergency because the police could, of course, address it, and then they are concerned about, of course, the fallout with respect to the economy. But Kamala Prasad Bisesa in 2011 made it very clear, lucid, that your economic prosperity has no value. You want to say? Kamala Prasad Bisesa said when she implemented the SOE under the UNC in 2011 that the economy, your wealth, and the accumulation thereof, and your material possession has no value if you are not around to appreciate it, to share it, and to, of course, distribute it as you see fit. And that was the argument for, of course, engaging in an SOE with, of course, a state of emergency, but not Rowley. Rowley and them are saying, well, we don't need a state of emergency. We don't need, of course, a curfew. And we don't need a gun amnesty. But all those things were placed in the state of emergency simply because it was a knee-jerk response. It was capricious. It was, of course, unplanned. And therefore, they had to go and take out, expunge at least 2 regulations. One dealing, of course, with the gun amnesty, because it was there, and there's a particular process in order for you to implement that. So, of course, Kamala Prasad Bisesa and, of course, Ramdeen and others cited that and said, well, why you have it as part of the regulations when, in fact, you are saying that your policy is not, of course, to have a gun amnesty. So they had to go and take out that. And then we saw, of course, where a magistrate said, well, listen, the gun laws of the country provides for 8 years imprisonment if the person is found guilty in that particular section of the gun law. But yet still, you brought the person to court. The maximum under the regulation is 5 years. What the hell are you doing? And they're so stupid. They say, look, the objective is really to keep the person in custody. So it means that you have no confidence in the evidence that you have to even have that person be found guilty and therefore to 5 years in prison. The lesser sanction, the lesser penalty. I mean, what is this? What is this? But we will continue, of course, with these and others. Let's hear them again.
The rationale and the purpose that we would have considered in the decision that was taken to place Trinidad and Tobago in a state of public emergency.
The declaration and the calling of a public state of emergency is not something that should be taken lightly, or something that this government certainly takes lightly at all.
One last thing. In 2012, when the Prime Minister would have occupied the opposition benches at that time, he made a statement then that if the government can't deal with crime, then the government itself is part of the problem. It's 12 years later, and we're seeing, of course, the problem is worse, and we're seeing higher, murder stats. And Dr. Rowley, by that standard now, can you say, sitting there, are you willing, as Minister of National Security, can you accept that pronouncement now? Because we're seeing the figures going up. We're seeing that fear, the trauma, the fear is there.
The government has been looking at all options all along the way, and we do not believe that a state of emergency is something that is our best option at this time, because there are a number of downsides to it, not the least of which we would want to do nothing to disrupt the economic recovery that we have been working towards and hoping to experience more going forward. You see, all of us are exposed to the criminal element. But if all of us spend all our time on that, or let that be the be-all and end-all in this country, or we panic ourselves into making decisions as was made in 2011, then we would be doing ourselves an injustice.
You ever say, panic ourselves as the mistake was made in 2011? Listen to this man. At an earlier time when, of course, the opposition was asking for a state of emergency at the beginning of 2024. And here Rowley, big talk, authoritative, you saw Hines, arrogance to the hilt, hubris, enveloped and saturated. And at the end of the day, it's pain, ache, agony, murders, killings, to the point where, of course, this government has been described as, of course, a purveyor of deaths, whether it be the Ministry of Health, children, as well as those died with respect to COVID, or the Ministry of National Security, murders, mayhem, the loss of property and the loss of limb. And here this buffoon attempting, of course, to convince us that a state of emergency is unnecessary until, of course, they are faced with the Hobson's choice. Hobson's choice. And then, of course, they pretend as though it is something that you must silo. It has occurred, as if there is no antecedent or historical precedent in terms of the incremental matters that brought them to the point where they have no choice but to implement, but at the cost of a tremendous amount of lives and economic disaster. It is called brinksmanship. But let's go to the lines. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
A pleasant good night to you, Mr. Lennox, and all your listeners.
Yes,
and
indeed.
to share the life.
Yes, man.
And to all the international callers. Mr. Lennox,
Hey.
we will rewind when the first term of the Alsing, the ultimate killing machine, the most set of deaths in our health system per year under the first 5 years of the Alsing, when the hospital was losing patients without any trace of understanding what killing them. Then the mortality rate went up again in the second term, and then they had COVID, where over 2,000 people, and I just always say this, that they kill in Augusta Sloan, killing abattoir, and the doctors are them, because the evidence is there, because the patient was to come out the morning in the new year. I've given them the date on the 3rd of January. And when all of a sudden, instead of they go to collect a patient, we collect a body. So I want the Altic to know, and then he come and he give the disrespectful this in him, give biscuit for the pandemic. But that is not what I going on. Then when he came up the road and the killing machine was in place and everything is going, he lambast, just as you played in the video, that he tried to spin it onto the United National Congress. Then when he decided to get the dragon gas deal and to lobby United States, Joe Biden, after Donald Trump was demitting office, he came up with a great plan that the criminal activities across border criminal activities in the Caribbean, that he's going to come up with a solution that if a criminal commit a crime in Barbados and they hide it in Trinidad, we will have an extradition free of charge and we could do it. Then he Brent Thomas, I'm not going there. Then he came and he lobbied the Caribbean to say that under criminal activity, he came up with the health is a big health problem now, because we have to go, right? I forget the word to put. Yeah, I forget the right word he put it into. And then he public health issue.
Yes.
So, and when he came in, he had and he spit on His Excellency, and then show him that he had no remorse for them. Then he came now with a health thing, and he pushed it to the Joe Biden in the United States to say that we are united. And then he went to United Nations and said, we are united, that he is the sanction on Venezuela because we depend on it in the Caribbean, and the Caribbean need the energy in the name of criminality. Then he came from the criminality in the Caribbean with a public health issue. Then he came, and our esteemed political leader, Ms. Kamla Prasad Bisesa, told him that here what's going on. We need to have a discussion we will get together, the quality opposition and saying and bluff. Then he said that when the opposition said that, okay, she will give in to the meeting, up to this day, in present time and the present hour as we speak, that fella in that video never see it fit to come to the table. Then after that failed, he went to the parliament and tell the parliament and disrespect the police officers with 4% and tell them that they had to take a polygraph test, and he passed the bill in the parliament to fight crime at the top of the police service. Come back again and insult them, tell the officers and them that they are locking a police station. Gulliver Police Station is air-conditioned, Mr. Lennox, under the United National Congress. Air-condition these office stations and them. You want the door skidding wide open? You have to think for yourself. And if it's in the night, would you leave a door open in a vulnerable area? So think. So he used all sort of gerrymandering. Then he came and he told them that the police officers need no bail. And with the no bail, he will fight crime. And up to this day, the no bail never went in. Faris know all the numbers, all the people, how much thousands it is. And they know where they are by name and identification card. Up to this day, Faris is with a pointy cutting bush, and he don't know and that is the head of the National Security Council, Keith Christopher Rowley, and he don't know nothing. So you see, all the plain, and yet still the people suffering. And look at it today. No, I wonder if we will go into a state of emergency with a curfew now, because 4 died, over 5 died over the weekend. So my sympathy and condolences to the fallen ones, no matter what means, they are still human beings. But the point we are getting at tonight is that PNM, under whatever form, for the last 10 years, criminal activity, there seems as they don't care about protecting the citizens. Have a good night, Miss Uncle Lennox.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Of course, I want to say, because of the frequency and the numbers that we expect on a nightly basis, of course, that we have to be a little more compendious, a little more shorter with our presentation. But of course, continue, of course, to make your points, because we don't want to anger or get anybody angry. But the fact of the matter is that, of course, we have to express ourselves, and he is quite right, because, of course, when one looks at the position and the intervention of the opposition, I mean, it continues to be superlative to that of the government. Before COVID came to Trinidad, the opposition wanted, of course, to talk about COVID. The opposition wanted to talk about crime, and they refused. And we can go on and on. But let's go straight, of course, to the caller. Pleasant good night. Pleasant good night.
Good night to the Honorable Doctor.
Good night to you as well, my friend. Tell me.
There are a couple of things I needed to find out. I don't know if you know about it.
Go ahead.
But a couple of weeks ago, I was watching YouTube and I saw the plane looked like a jumbo jet on the runway of the airport tarmac. A white plane with a red band on it. And I get to understand that we have people on the ground from America here. Right?
That I'm not familiar. No, I'm not familiar. I'll have
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I get to understand from a friend of mine is about 100 and something fellas on the ground.
Okay.
It's in some hotel.
All right. That is very interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting. But go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
And well, I don't know what's going on with Penelope. But Penny girl, I thought it was a good one. Because 9/11, and when you look, the UNC would have had 19 in the parliament.
Yes, but
so he come out and he come out and said 21 after the meeting on Saturday.
Yeah, 20 pieces of
right?
silver. 30 pieces of silver caused that.
Yes, my
don't
brother.
want to
Yes,
lose,
yes,
yeah, they
yes.
don't want to lose, of course, that material.
No, he don't want to
acquisition.
lose it because he know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, Penny too.
Right?
Penny too. She
But
is
that I say,
a
no.
beneficiary of that. Yes. Yes.
But I like to tell you, Penny's a girl I did like.
Yeah. I too.
Right?
I too. A good friend.
But I don't know what's going on with she.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if they threaten she.
Yeah. They are
If they threaten she to push you out.
Yeah. That's how it is.
All right, my brother.
Thank you very much, of course. Go ahead, Mr. Point 14. Point 14, go ahead.
Well, Lennox, pleasant good night to you and everybody on the live near and far. Pleasant good night.
Yes.
Lennox Smith.
Go ahead.
I heard on a program today
that
it has some U.S. officials staying in the Hyatt or they were seen by the Hyatt sometime, I don't know if it's today or yesterday. And I think the full force, which might be ships and planes and some might be making its way to Trinidad pretty soon. They got more like Yaman Cassava in the ground.
Repeat that last part for me there. I didn't hear that.
Right, so I'm hearing that Donald Trump is coming to dig out Maduro from Venezuela. Yeah, like Yaman Cassava in the ground.
I hear you. Oh, right. You're using an analogy, a figurative expression. Go ahead.
Yeah, because Donald Trump swearing today, and I think there's some Spanish do that he let us. I'm not sure if I get the information correct, but some Spanish do that he hire in the Senate or wherever here he go be dealing with that matter already with Venezuelan migrants is concerned because since early last year, my brother of mine just travel a lot on cruise ship, and he was saying it have a lot of Venezuelan right now raining havoc in certain cities in America, even in New York. And right now, Trump going and reverse that problem we're having right now. And I've seen a lot of prime ministers and all stepping down too. So I don't know what it is Trump bringing to the table, but we only know why he wanted duck and run.
Oh yes. It's clear. There's more in the motor than the pestle. It couldn't be because none of the indicators, just about a month or two before he made the announcement, suggested that he planned to, of course, make his exit, whether as parliamentary representative for Diego Martin West, or as prime minister, or as leader of the party. So they are intervening, of course, scenarios that we are yet to have a full appreciation of, but with the efflux of time, certainly we are going to know what the facts are. But of course, we must keep our eyes laser focused on the fact that an election is due, and therefore we must go to the polls and give, of course, the UNC and whatever configuration 39 seats in Trinidad.
But Lennox, you remember Rowley did saying something with America, and I think a journalist was questioning him about it, and you only dancing on Balize House with the question where the journalist was asking him some agreement Trinidad Tobago signed with America, and they was asking him, the journalist was asking Rowley if the Americans and them are allowed to put troops in Trinidad in case if some what's going on in Venezuela in the election.
If there is a conflict that the Americans need to make an intervention in Latin America or any part of the Western Hemisphere, well, yes, you are correct. In fact, Guyana is the last country that would have signed that arrangement with the United States, which would have included, of course, landing troops and using your country as a staging point for any military activity that the Americans may wish to engage. And of course, the only major issue in the Western Hemisphere, and in particular in Latin America, and more specifically in South America, is of course Venezuela. In fact, Maduro was extremely concerned and read, of course, a sort of quasi-rat act to the Caribbean countries for accommodating, and Trinidad and Tobago would have been right in line because we also signed a similar arrangement with the United States.
Yeah, because you want going on Lennox. It's about a guy from, I don't know if it's one of them, Beijing and them. Did he dissect that interview there with Rowley and the journalists. And when I get chance, I will send it for you.
No problem.
I feel in that dissection, that man dissect that thing there, Rowley running from something serious.
Oh yeah.
He-
It is clear. Just we can't pinpoint it as yet, but as I say, with the influx of time, we will of course unveil time longer than twice.
I will send that thing for you.
All right. Okay.
I will
Thanks.
send it.
Yes.
Right, so look on listening.
Yes, indeed. Of course, don't forget, people, we want to get up to 20,000 a night. Of course, we are up to 5,000. We want to get, of course, the 20,000 a night, and it means, therefore, we have to expand. Of course, there are certain things that I on this side will have to do, like, of course, improve the efficaciousness of the communication, have a system where, of course, we can wait and we can, of course, engage all who wish to make their presentation on a nightly basis. But that being as it may, the objective is, of course, to share. The objective, of course, is to, of course, make certain that persons who you are familiar with and those who you are familiar with, they too, of course, deal with people who they are familiar with, and therefore the multiplier effect will take place, and therefore we will have, of course, what I consider to be a massive audience across the globe to, of course, focus on the corridor transformation, because quite a lot of content material will be plowed into this program, including, of course, solution oriented, which is, of course, is very important, particularly for communities. And of course, that is my forte, so to speak, such as, of course, the Laventils that, of course, have never, of course, voted against the PNM. Well, I expect that with adequate knowledge and understanding, and the fact that 5 years is not an eternity, contrary to what the PNM will over the years have, of course, told generations of Laventilians, that to give the impression that 5 years is, of course, an eternity, and at the same time tell them you know what you have, but you don't know what you will get. That kind of hogwash and, of course, irrelevance, having regard to the fact of what we know today and the speed with which information is distributed, one, and two, is available. A pleasant good night. Welcome.
Good night, Mr. Lennox.
Good night to you.
To all the good boys.
Yes, ma'am.
I have to go to vote for this election, and I have to go to vote on a wheelchair because I cannot stand up to it so long.
I see.
To vote.
Right.
Right. But if I hear Mr. Rowley on the news say he's bringing CARICOM observers. If he brings CARICOM observers and he's not bringing international observers, I am not going to waste my vote. Because once he brings CARICOM observers, he win already. Because he always in meeting with all of them. Yeah, there are CARICOM observers and he all of them is one. But all you have to see, how all you will get international observers to come here.
Yes.
Because we are going to waste my vote in that state.
I hear you.
Eh?
I hear you. Of course, I'm going to respond when you're finished, but I hear you.
Yeah.
And the word, yes.
I want all the work on that. I want the opposition work on that.
Yes.
And I say this too. I say, if we cannot forgive good people, we cannot live. And the past is already gone. The present moment is now. And I feel that I like Kamala. I will vote for Kamala. But I feel no matter what it is, that is politics. She should find herself, getting to talk to Jack Warner, getting to talk to Griffith, no matter if you are sending them up on a seat. Because that is politics.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, my friend. Thank you. Well, I want to assure you from where I stand, and of course, I think that I'm speaking from a position of authority. for two reasons. One is that I myself is leading, of course, what I consider to be a team of persons to look at international observers, Carter Foundation and others, UN as well as, of course, OAS, etc. So we are looking at that. But I also know that we are liaising with, of course, the formal opposition as well, to look and to make sure that, of course, these people come on their own volition, at their own expense, because they have a reputation, etc. And, of course, what Rowley said, only CARICOM observers, that is not cast in steel or in concrete, largely because at that point in time he was saying that the letter is ready and did not give any indication that he was going to demit office. So there must have been something between then and now that caused him to do so. And we want to think, of course, is the Trump factor. But of course, we will wait and see how these matters unfold before we conclude. A pleasant good night, Twin City. A pleasant good night.
Pleasant good night. Good night.
Yes.
Lennox, you're looking like you're bright up today, boy. You're looking shining today. That bulb like it's bright today. Well, I enjoy it so far, so good.
All right.
But I have something.
Mr. Cruz, just hold on. We have another caller, Mr. Twin City.
Oh, pleasant good night, Miss Santa Cruz.
No
Pleasant good night, Miss Santa Cruz.
Yes. Go ahead, Mr. Twin City.
Yeah. So I just have one little issue here, and then we go move on as quickly as possible.
Yes.
So here what is I'm trying to figure out concerning this coat of arms, right?
Yes.
We have the steel pan and thing on it now, and as I was informed, and not really informed, but I was made of aware also that if you taking off the three ships, you're supposed to take off the steering wheel and take off the helmet and everything, right? Based on that. Now the question is, this is what I think they should have done. I mean, the pan, everybody in Trinidad and Tobago realized that the pan is our national instrument. It was what was invented in the 21st century, and it's the only thing that is of now that I ever aware of. Right? So we're all happy with that. That is our pride and joy.
Yes.
Instead of putting it on the coat of arms, put it on the flag. Because the reason for what I'm saying that to you is that you don't see the coat of arms on the streets. That is government documentation. You will see a car passing with it at the side, but you really don't see the document. You go in any part of the world, UN anyway, you'll see our flag flying, right? Well, put the pan on the flag. I mean, it has the space for it.
That makes a lot of sense. I see no difficulty with that, particularly when, of course, other symbols of our colonial past, as far as the coat of arms is concerned, are still there. As you rightly said, the helmet, of course, the wheel of the ship, symbolizing the wheel of the ship, etc. And therefore, of course, it is almost what I consider to be an incomplete initiative. But go ahead.
Well, as I rightly say, from the ground before, one of your callers, you actually say,
yes,
a 10-year-old could have come up with that design, which is true.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
ordinary steel pan with two sticks, and of course, and it's golden.
That's blocked. Yeah, to me, they just cut and paste. They stick in front of that. I know, but that's far from what I'm saying.
We don't know how much she got paid for that designer. We don't know.
You don't worry. Something like 7 zeros with that.
Yeah.
With 7 zeros with that. You don't worry about it. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that they should consider putting it on the flag. And we could fly that anywhere we go and be proud of it. So everybody will know exactly. And then we will be promoting at the same time Carnival. I mean, I'm just using common sense here. But still, at least we will know that this belongs to Trinidad and that's where it came from. So that is our pride and joy. The world will know where the pan comes from.
No, it makes a lot of sense. It makes more sense than what is unfolding now, because you do not, of course, take the coat of arms and at an Olympic event, for example, or any major sporting or any major ceremony, and you carry the coat of arms. You normally will carry the flag. And therefore, of course,
Right.
if you're looking for visibility and you're looking for, of course, people knowing that Trinidad and Tobago is the mecca and the originator of the steel pan, the inventors of the steel pan, and then, of course, that seemed to be a better idea. And you don't have all the financial implications for the
Yes,
changing of the
that
notes,
goes.
etc. That will attract. Even though, of course, the government is trying to deny that, but our common sense will tell us that that is a huge cost in terms of just changing the dollars. I
Yeah,
don't
it's
know
going to
what they
cost
will
us
do then.
billions,
Yeah,
eh?
yeah,
Billions.
yeah.
All right. Let me get Miss Santa Cruz. Miss Santa Cruz, good night again.
Yes,
All
indeed.
right, Miss Central.
Yes, my friend. Thank you very much. Of course, go ahead, Miss Santa Cruz. Welcome.
Good night, Lennox. Good night to you and to everybody out there. Lennox, I was just prepared to listen tonight and not call. But after hearing Granny, I said, no, I have to call.
Yes.
We have our job cut out for us, Lennox.
Yes, yes, yes.
We have our job cut out for us. Right? I want to tell Granny, don't do that. Don't do that. Because when you do that, Rowley is going to win. You remember there's a thing called the popular vote, right? Regardless of what. If she gets it, she mightn't be able to, might the popular vote will not make her win, right? But it will be registered to the UNC, right? To show that the UNC is still more popular than Rowley. No, we can't sit at home and complain what Rowley is doing to us and not go out and vote. I admire the fact that you're in a wheelchair and you are still prepared to go and vote. You're not going to let anything prevent you from voting. Do not let, if we have CARICOM observers, do not let that disturb you, prevent you from going out there and vote. Lennox, we really have to convince people, I thought 2015 was bad, but like this year going to be worse. People are seeing what it is going on in the country, and yet still a little thing like that going to prevent us from not going out to vote. No, Lennox, no, we can't do that. We have to go out there and teach them a lesson, Granny. We have to go, right? And that is the lesson we have to teach Rowley, that he cannot continue doing what it is he wants, although he wouldn't be there for long. But we cannot let Stuart Young get away with it either, because they are cut from the same cloth.
Yes, half a dozen or 1 and 6 of the other. Yes, you're quite right.
Yeah, they are cut from the same cloth, Lennox. You understand? We cannot let them get away with it.
Yes.
And Lennox, what the gentleman was saying is that there was an agreement, a security agreement, that was signed by the United States and Trinidad.
Yes.
And when the reporter asked him if it given the United States permission to put up a base here and they could attack Venezuela at any time, he got vexed.
Yes.
He got vexed when they asked him that. But that's the intentions. Everybody know that's the intentions.
Of course. And therefore, the fact is that the same arrangement or agreement was signed with Guyana that has, of course, a direct, should I say, potential and real conflict scenario with Venezuela tells us that it is one and the same. Yeah. Yeah.
Because on the Saturday in his inaugural speech, he spoke about Venezuela, and there's a letter circulated or a post circulated where they mention.
Mr. Rina, hold on. We have Miss Santa Cruz on the line. Go ahead, Miss Santa Cruz.
Yeah, where Trinidad and Tobago name was called, and people affiliate Trinidad and Tobago, Cuba, and I think St. Vincent and the Grenadines names were called, being affiliated with Maduro. You see what Rowley put us in?
I didn't hear it. I have to check it again tonight.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and they you see what Rowley put us in, Lennox?
Oh yeah.
That's why the coward. He's a rocket line coward.
The disaster that Rowley has fomented and against, of course, our best interests and policies and programs, whether foreign or domestic. Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
and he's a coward, Lennox.
Of course.
He's a coward. what?
Of course.
He put us in this nonsense, and then
He
you want to
hightailed him
run.
out of it. He
You
hightailed him out of
understand?
it.
No, yeah.
Yeah, but he's our ostrich.
We had to
He
get
buried
rid
his
of
head in
that
his
man.
sand. But his backside is outside, so that's all.
We had to get rid of him.
Yes.
Yeah. He like an ostrich. He like an ostrich. His head in the stand and big backside outside. Anyway, Lennox, thanks a lot and have a good night.
Yeah, bye-bye. I'm getting that noise. That noise is by you, Miss Arima? You have dogs in the background?
Yes, dogs barking next door.
All right, go
Oh,
ahead.
well, you're getting a lot of calls.
Yeah, I know I have one dog, so I want to know how it multiplied itself suddenly just so.
Nice, by my end.
Oh, all right, okay. Go ahead. Yes, make a contribution.
So, what I'm saying is, Granny, I want to tell you this. Once CARICOM come, that's it. We don't stand a chance. For the fact that CARICOM is with Rowley, and they would help in the cheating of the elections, right? Whenever CARICOM has to make a stance on issues here in the region, right, concerning Venezuela, they make it good for Venezuela. Simple. They vote for Venezuela. Sometimes they don't vote. So CARICOM are the ones who really propping up Mr. Nicolas Maduro. That is the whole issue about it. They are one. Trinidad and Tobago is run by the man next door. All these CARICOM countries, he running this whole region. They need him for the oil and gas, okay? And Rowley is the best salesman, the great salesman. And if we want, I want to tell Granny this, if we want any observers from the Carter Foundation, the person to do that is the leader of the opposition. This is why they have these organizations for whenever government is not democratic and they're breaking the laws in the country and even the law in the entire American Charter, the opposition has the power to approach them. Now, the lady did approach 16 organizations. She said she wrote to them. She drafted out a letter. I heard it on the ground report, and up to now, not a word from her stating how much answer, what is the position. So we don't have to feel that whatever Rowley say goes. No, she have that power to approach, and she show it, but up to now, not a word.
All right.
I want to say something concerning what Rowley do and put us in this position. I said good. I like what happened, because when people talking all the time are talking about me, yes, so that we the citizens could have protest against decisions that he took and things that he'd been doing, things he's doing up to now by placing this little young Chinese man to be prime minister and not electing him in the elections, right? So once he placed him there, whatever election it have, whether he win his seat where he have to represent the people, that's Chochong, he will still be the prime minister. And we don't want to hear nothing about no popular vote. We want to win the election. UNC must win the election outright. Right? So we supposed to try and push him out from all now. Yeah. Push him out.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much. Yes, indeed, of course. Caller, go ahead. Miss Arima has just completed her presentation. Go ahead.
Hello? Good night, Mr. Smith.
Good night to you, my friend. Go ahead.
I recently observed where the EBC was advertising for the renewal or the replacement or first-time registration for attaining an ID card to Trinidad and Tobago, which I found to be a bit strange. And they included in it a new requirement which they claim is proof of address, where normally they would send out scouts to determine that this person was actually living there, make a few checks, and then call you in later on for your ID card. They have now decided that they want you to produce this, which tells me that they expect to be doing this renewal on a very large scale, making it almost or virtually impossible for them to do these personal checks. Now, the way that this government has operated, I wouldn't be surprised if they insist that you must have an ID card with this new coat of arms before being allowed to cast a vote. Nothing I would put past them. One, a delay tactics, and two, to catch opposition supporters off guard.
Yes,
because they could surreptitiously and they could clandestinely be secretly advising their supporters from the time we get the coat of arms on the new ID card, go out easy, get your ID card, new ID card, and ensure that you're there. And I don't want the opposition to fall into any slumber and underestimate the evil that this government portrays. You see, it is not difficult for them to deny people access to the polling station if you have the old ID card. Recall how they did with the change of the birth paper when it was the yellow one, then they came out with the blue one, and then all of a sudden they have this other one, and you couldn't use the others if you wanted to apply for your NIS or your pension. You had to get the new one. Although all they did was punch in your name, charge you $25, and handed you the yellow one. They did nothing normal. The information didn't change. So it seems as though we have to be more than alert as to this impact of this new coat of arms, which will eventually go onto your driver's permit, your passport, and obviously your ticket to the polling station, which is your Trinidad and Tobago ID card, or run the risk of getting removed from the electoral process if you do not register for the new ID card. So we have to be ever vigilant where these people are concerned, you know.
No, I agree. I agree. There is always something sinister lurking for their own aggrandizement and personal imposition on the people, whether they like it or not. So you're quite right. Out of an abundance of caution, I appreciate, certainly, of course, that alert that you have shared with us, and certainly it will be something that will be ventilated more, having regard, of course, to the recentness of this development.
Yes, and the speed to which suddenly the coat of arms comes out with a pan in the center. Okay, fine, no problem. And then the expert, the artist, the local artists are claiming, listen, this isn't good. Another delaying tactic. I would want to presume that all of this shenanigans is by reason of wanting to, one, prolong the date for the election, two, get people accustomed to his little yellow chimpanzee as his successor.
Yes. All of that is in the mix. I agree with that. That is
all of those things.
That is pellucid, like day giving way to night and vice versa.
Yeah, but we cannot fall asleep with other distractions that they will go and throw in the mix.
Yes.
And while their supporters, ignorant as they are, go to the EBC without all the due requirement, they will have a little piece of paper from the MP in the area to show the EBC, hey, well, listen, it's okay, you can renew me. They wouldn't have to go through the rigors and the trial and tribulation.
No, I hear you. While, of course, those that is certain are opposed to them, particularly, of course, I suspect you are talking here about those marginal seats in particular, but then it could apply as well to seats that are held by the opposition that are considered to be safe seats as well, in order to show that they have improved their fortunes electorally. So I take note.
Because you have, let's say you have 10 people living in a house, for instance.
Yes.
And one of the persons in the house is the owner of the house and has the lights, the water, all the bills in their name. The other persons will have difficulty in showing proof of address if that is the requirement.
Yeah. No, I agree. The timing is also questionable, and therefore there must be something up the sleeves of these people who have demonstrated that they're prepared, of course, to undermine the electoral process or to disgrace our first past the post system, and of course respect for free and fair elections. Yeah. All right.
Let us not forget for 1 minute that the EBC is now beholden to them because they have actually put their people in positions.
Yes.
And all
of course,
all a person has to do is get this little piece of paper from his MP.
Yeah, I hear you.
Hand it to that.
Yeah, the argument is clear. All right?
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Yes. In other words, of course, don't put it beyond Rowley and they are purveyors and manufacturers and concoctors of course, evil in order to stay in office by subverting the entire process. And don't for 1 minute, of course, put beyond any thought that this removal of the ship and putting the pan may create, of course, an opportunity for an unfair advantage at the polls, because it is only at the polls will determine who must control Trinidad and Tobago, and therefore it means you and I. And I too will be beseeching Granny, because it is clear that if everybody goes and vote in a particular constituency, if there are 20,000 persons and close to 20,000 persons voted, and then of course in the count, whether the returning officer or in a request for a recount, more people than 20,000 would have cast their votes, then you know that there is something amiss. It will not be too late, but of course it will be a serious infringement of the electoral process. And therefore, there's another thing that I want to share with you, but let's go to the lines before, of course, I do that. Welcome, Mr. Trincity, sorry.
Good night again, Lennox.
Yes.
I just want to ask, there's two little questions quickly.
Go ahead.
One is concerning the Venezuelans and them with the new ID cards and thing or whatever it is they have. I don't know. I never see it. I don't know what it look like. I don't know who have and how much people have.
Yeah.
The question is there a loophole or some fictitious law that is going to be coming by the EBC that they might be allowed to vote, because they are more than a year in the country now?
Yes.
So they have, like, for instance, if you living in a specific area or in a house for a certain amount of time, let's say on state land for like 20 years, at least, I don't know, there's some law that you say, well, you belong to there, because you
there's something called there is a law that gives you entitlement once you apply. It is called adverse possession, where you are taking it in adverse to the paper owner or the person with the deed. Yeah, both private and public.
Is will that or some part of that law, not in that particular law, but somewhere in the books that they have created, that these Venezuelans might now be able to vote?
Well, you don't put it beyond them, because we have seen already that this government is prepared to engage in illegal acts. It is called misfeasance, where of course they have the office and therefore manipulate it to accommodate, of course, wrongdoing, and by the time the population get wind of it, the evil agenda is achieved. We saw that, of course, with the emails. So we understand that, and therefore we must be extremely vigilant caller said, and one part of it is that everybody must get out there and vote. And if it is that happens, it means that therefore that is one element that they will have difficulty in overcoming in order to have their way. But of course, there are others that we can look at. President, good night. Just hold on, caller. I have Mr. Trinity on the next line. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me do one final one. And this one is for an educational thing. I'm doing a little research and I'm doing something for somebody.
All right.
But yeah, what's going on? They say the sun does rise in the east and sets in the west. Right? I mean, that's what you learn. I learned that. I mean,
yeah, Mr. Smith.
Yeah, hold on, caller. Tell me where you're calling from so I could identify the difference. I have Mr. Trinity.
I'm calling from La Paya in Princeton, your partner.
Okay, partner. Princess Song, hold on. I have Mr. Trinity completed.
So,
go ahead.
If they're saying that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, but the sun don't really move, so we just be really learning. And that's like the government. They're telling us one thing and it's something else. So I just want to know.
When it's perception and what I consider to be optical illusions, because I mean it doesn't move. But of course they say that the 23rd of March the 23rd, the sun is overhead the equator, and then of course 3 months later it is over the Tropic of Cancer, and then of course and when it is at the equator, when it's at the equator,
that's an illusion.
In the north,
it's an illusion.
You have spring when it's in the north. In the north you have spring, and when it reaches of course the Tropic of Cancer, you then have of course summer, and then in the south you have winter, etc. Of course, that is. I'm saying that because I want the C students and the CXC students not to be confused, even though it appears to be confusing. All right.
All right. So have a pleasant good night.
Yes, my friend. Right, thank you very much. Yes, indeed. Go ahead, Miss Princess Tong.
Yeah, Mr. Smith.
Yes. Good night.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember me. I from La Paya in Princess Tong. You and Andy was by me already, right?
Okay.
I didn't want. Right. I want to have a chat with you, but I don't know if I could call you after the young report tomorrow.
You could call me after the program tonight as well, so that and I will have an appreciation as to what it is, not necessarily have to wait until tomorrow. Right? That's the kind of.
No, it's important.
Right? Okay, no problem.
It's important that I talk to you now.
Okay, no problem. All right. Yes.
Okay. Then. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah, no problem. Yes, indeed. People, of course, we do all kind of things here. Yeah, we advise. We, of course, help people with their pensions if they're having difficulties, etc. Even though they might have made a mistake in providing more information that is necessary to have them, of course, get through faster than they would normally would have with the information that they provided. Some people provide too much information, and that is sometimes works against them, etc. So what I advise, of course, let us see what you have done before you, of course, apply or submit the documents, because many of them, too often, public servants, they believe the money is theirs, and therefore, of course, they have a duty to protect. Not that administrative justice should be done away with, but at least, of course, many of them demonstrate uncanny ability, of course, to be what I consider to be over enthusiastic, and sometimes, of course, rub on the wrong side of the public, and so, of course, generate what I consider to be bottlenecks and bureaucracy and red tape that could have easily be overcome by maybe a letter from somebody, as the case may be. But many of these pensioners, they may not be able to read properly and write properly, or indeed, of course, understand the form, and therefore we have to, of course, provide them with some assistance, because at the end of the day, that money will assist them in, of course, in surviving in this very, very, what I consider the hostile and brutal environment. And that being as it may, let me, of course, go straight to, and of course, I wanted to mention as well that the No Vote campaign was in 1971. All right, 1971, the No Vote campaign. And Robinson, of course, was the man that initiated that, falling out with Eric Williams. And he found it, of course, very dishonest of Eric Williams. And there were some confrontational issues before that. But and that resulted, of course, in the PNM, of course, within all 36 seats, I believe it was at the time, either 36 or 34 at that time. And so, of course, it just clear in my mind that it was 1971, not 61 or not 66. Of course, I will play something if I have the time now, if I have the time tonight, by Robinson himself at a symposium or at a meeting sponsored by UWI. I think it would have been the Faculty of Social Development or that particular faculty, sponsored by that by the operators or the professors there. So we will look at that as well. But let's go back, of course, to that question of the SOE, where it came from, and of course the fact that Rowley and they had a different position, wise, of course, even in government. Let's hear.
Is there.
The government has been looking at all options all along the way, and we do not believe that a state of emergency is something that is our best option at this time, because there are a number of downsides to it, not the least of which we would want to do nothing.
Remember, of course, early 2024, Kamala asked for a discussion on the matter of crime, just as, of course, she asked very early, even after Carnival 2020, on the matter of COVID. But the arrogance, the contempt, the hubris, should I say, the self-serving nature of these fellas, who, of course, grab on and hold on to power and believe that power makes them wise, and they turn out to be total nincompoops and plunge Trinidad and Tobago into a downward spiral that, of course, results in embarrassment, incompetence, and make Trinidad and Tobago shameful, and, of course, the laughing stock of the region. These fellas, headed by this asinine specimen of inhumanity. But hear him, big talk, and then at the end of 2024, he now, of course, caused a state of emergency, and it's no big thing. 600 and something deaths, many of which could have been avoided. And them only telling me that these fellas and women must be given another bite at the national cherry. I say no. And anybody with conscience will say no. It had nothing to do with texture of hair and color of skin. They are simply incompetent.
To disrupt the economic recovery that we have been working towards and hoping to experience more going forward. You see, all of us are exposed to the criminal element. But if all of us spend all our time on that, or let that be the be-all and end-all in this country, or we panic ourselves into making decisions as was made in 2011, then we would be doing ourselves an injustice. We believe that we can fight the criminals, we are fighting the criminals, and we can allow our economy to not be beaten down by the actions of the criminals, by making decisions like a state of emergency, which would not really get to the root cause of the criminality. Right? That's the government's position. So we are not advancing a state of emergency as our response to crime.
No, if you hear talking that on Prince Street or Nelson Street, they take one clout for the amount of persons that died because of that asinine position. Because he want to sound right, he want to sound good. He wants to stay there at the time when he was talking it. And invariably, it turns out that the opposite is the case. That is why I keep saying, when he tell you run, you stand up, and when he tell you open your eyes, you close it tight, even though you would be doing it at your own peril. Let's say him again in opposition.
Joining us to discuss the state of emergency is opposition leader Dr. Keith Rowley.
All we are saying, we question the option the government chose to respond. We are never saying that the government shouldn't respond. We are not saying that the government shouldn't fight crime vigorously. What we have been engaging is the option. And we have...
Our next story is from the...
And after that, of course, international news affecting the very thing that he said he tried to avoid, and that is to say, our economic welfare. Economic welfare. They say, Short Chung was very clear. No curfew because of the economy. No SOE, according to Rowley, because of the economy. But listen to this international broadcast on the situation in Trinidad.
Caribbean, from the twin island nation of Trinidad and Tobago. The country has declared a state of emergency. The military has been mobilized. They will act as a secondary police force. Security forces have been given additional powers. They will be allowed to conduct searches without a warrant. They can detain suspects without charge and deny them bail. It's a full-scale crackdown. And the reason is a surge in gang violence. Our next report has the details.
Certain criminal gangs, and I will leave out the places where at this stage, but I can say throughout Trinidad and possibly Tobago, are likely to immediately increase their brazen acts of violence in reprisal shootings on a scale so extensive that it threatens persons and will endanger public safety.
An assassination attempt, a retaliatory shootout, and 6 people killed. It was a weekend of gang violence in Trinidad and Tobago, and it has led to the authorities declaring a state of emergency. It began on Saturday. A known gang leader was leading...
Yes, of course, let's go straight to the lines. We give way at all times to the callers. A pleasant good night to welcome.
Pleasant good night, Uncle Lennox.
Yes, man. Mover in the house. Go ahead.
Yeah, sentence is...
Sentence is, oh, sorry. Sentence is, okay.
Yeah. I want to say good night to everybody in Trinidad and Tobago. I want to say condolences to the young lady who got shot from the police in Beetham.
Beetham, all right, okay.
They want to say condolences to the family and the friends of them.
Right.
I see you now point up the video with the SOE make the international news and thing.
Yes.
As on that now, just when the SOE did call, Mr. Subhash Pandey did raise a concern on the SOE regulation clause 6. Right, Mr. Subhash Pandey is highlighting that clause 6 at the SOE, that any irregularities from the police service or any law enforcement agency, right, it cannot be addressed after the SOE, meaning that nobody could take legal proceeding against the state for any irregularities coming from any law enforcement agency during the SOE. Right. And the young lady who got killed with the stray bullet, right? The police was chasing them and them take a vehicle knife point. And end up in a shooting and an innocent woman got killed. So you know going on? Clause 6, the family had no redress to get. You understand? So I want to see how them attorneys and them now going to walk around that now. Look on listening.
Yes, my friend. Yes, my friend. Very, very, very salient and important point. Yeah, because of course, in the circumstance there where, of course, families are traumatized, I understand that the woman is the breadwinner of the family, and having regard to the track record of this government, whether it be, of course, those divers that lost their lives in that pipeline, or they have, of course, acted as the enemy of small businesses by closing down or winding up, of course, the education facilities company. So, of course, people would have suffered, done work for the government, and the government refused to pay and use the court, of course, to enforce that. That this is another incident of evil that has stalked this country, and another reason why you must get out there and vote. Granny, not going and vote is not an option. You must go out there, every single person that is qualified to vote in every constituency across the country, all 39 in Trinidad, and of course, and the 2 in Tobago, must of course get out there and get rid of this viper that of course plagued Trinidad and Tobago over the last 10 years. Professor, good night, welcome.
Good night.
Good night, my friend. Yes.
Lennox Ken here.
Yes.
How you doing?
I'm all right. And yourself?
Good man. Time coming close. Time becoming closer coming down there, man. Time coming close.
Beautiful. I'm looking forward, because last night I had a sudden shutdown.
I know. I question. What the hell happened here?
Yeah, that's what happened. Yeah. Normally, I'll extend the courtesy of saying good night and I'll see you tomorrow, but I wasn't able to do that last night. But that's all right.
Lennox.
Yes.
In my wildest dream.
Yes.
Anyway, good night, everybody in there on the program, and everybody else Trinidad and Tobago, right? Anyhow, in my wildest dream, that a lot of people does not know Trinidad and Tobago, right? I don't know where you're coming from.
Yeah.
A lot of people did not know Trinidad and Tobago, but now half of the world know Trinidad and Tobago. Where's Trinidad and Tobago?
Yeah. Negatively.
Because
in a negative light.
In a negative light.
Okay.
Right?
Yes, good to see you, Rowley.
You know where I'm coming from?
Yes.
Right? Look where this man carried this country to. Look where this man carried this country to. To the world news that everybody knows where Trinidad and Tobago is and what it's capable of. What a shame. Right? Look at this man. Nobody, from my wildest dream, Lennox, I lived so many years. This is the first time that Trinidad and Tobago go international news. With crimes and all this kind of thing were going on. Drugs and crime and killing and all kind of stuff going on. Never had that. Next thing again, Stuart Young get some good training for Maduro. You're asking why he going over there all the time? Maduro training. And all these things was going on, that was a plan. Lennox, I tell you a long time ago that this man would not give up. This man is a nasty stink man. He's dangerous. You hear me, Mr. Lennox?
Yeah, we know he's a criminal. I've said that.
He's a dirty
almost
criminal.
ad nauseam. Yeah, go ahead, yes.
Right? And everything that come out of that man is a lie. Even Stuart Young. He bring up a coat of arms. Look what now he bring it. Why he didn't bring it years ago when he had introduced it? Why now? Because, like I said in the ground report, it will take a lot of time to get all the documents in a row. And you know this man, well, you don't know when he will call the election. You never know. Because you never know if he get through with that coat of arms, he will call election right after that. Guess what? People are be scrambling to go get the passport, ID card, all kind of things to get to vote. And that is what the man doing. The man want to steal election again. The man plainly, you see that he steal election again. Thing. It plain you seen that. He ain't want no overseas observers. He ain't want this. He ain't want to do that. Lennox, let somebody else talk.
All right, thank you very much.
And I just bring it out there, man.
Yeah, man.
I just bring it out and tell people that that is what this man is doing.
Yeah.
You know?
And the more we
All right,
talk,
Lennox.
yeah, the more we talk about it, the more they are exposed, more people are alert, and the more, of course, you get out there and do your civic duty and responsibility. We are going to, of course, talk about some of the things that gives credence to the last callers, of course. Why is it maybe a notion? But the fact of the matter is that we cannot, of course, see fire and put your hand in it to know that it burns. When you see so many, what should I say, examples of people having been burnt as a consequence of fire. But let's go to the line. A pleasant good night and welcome to the corridor.
Pleasant good night, Mr. Lennox.
Good night to you as well, my friend.
And pleasant good night to the right-thinking citizen of this beloved. Mr. Lennox, I want to add a little bit to what you were saying there, and in for correction. That at that time with it to the 6 seat, as you say, and they win all, that is not the time when they had a no-vote campaign.
Yes, the no-vote campaign in 1971.
And that is not the time when Dr. Eric Eustace Williams rewrite the Constitution to suit the PNM only.
Yeah, the Constitution was designed for that purpose. But as I say, if you have dishonorable people, no matter what the Constitution is, and you have dishonorable people, as we have seen now, and of course then, it's going to be a very, very tough thing to, of course, expunge these people, you know, from office. But they are going to do, in other words, whatever the illegal things in order to stay in office. That's the point I'm making. It's called an auto coup. But go ahead.
And based on when I run through that little history on Dr. Eric Williams, Mr. Eric Williams at the time learned one thing from he adopted that real good, because always telling me he's the third brightest man. So who was the second and who was the first? We never know, but we know about the third, right?
Yeah.
All right. And I go in again. He learned one thing. What he learned is how to make people or a group of people believe in something that would never happen. So it's come like, you know, you don't do drugs, and you take one pull in a jug, and then after looking for that pull you get your whole life. So your whole life you're running down a drug for a pull that you get that you would never get. So I say that to say he brainwashed them as PNM people. That's why you're still hearing senior citizens today telling we that if they put a crapo, they will vote for it. And the vote for Toad, which is fail Gerald Swine, the vote for Toad, because he bigger than a crapo. So I will call he a Toad. And they voted for that, and they voted for that outright. He win by 10,000 in Lavanti. And what's Lavanti? And what's Caroni? Caroni was swampland, Lavanti remains the same. And then you hear an elderly telling me that people have money in Trinidad, look at Caroni Road. So I just really want to know, this thing Eric Williams spread across this nation really mash up a certain ethnic group of people, you know?
Yes.
Because how I can stand up after now and before and say this still are dead, and I see no results to say that. My road ain't fixed, my garbage ain't emptied on time, water not in my pipe, the place underdeveloped, underfed, undernourished, and every time Christmas come, I as a MP had to give hampers to the majority of people in my constituency. That means I'm not doing too well in my constituency. And those are the constituencies that the PNM do not lose. Year go, 5 years go, 5 years come. So Eric Williams did his homework real good, because he did know good how to brainwash a certain ethnic group of people. So Mr. Lennox, thanks again for the contribution. Thanks again for allowing me this contribution like always.
Thank you very much, and of course you're always welcome. But I want to say that in spite of that propaganda, in spite of the brainwashing, in spite of the conditioning, it was adequately aided and abetted by the manipulation of various institutions such as EBC to gerrymander. So he was not as successful as people would want to think. And he is, of course, clearly, in my view, the perfect genius. Perfect genius. Because it is so conspicuous, so blatant, that these people in places like the EBC, and of course we saw under Rowley in the case of the Police Service Commission, and of course the Public Service Commission, and other, of course, so-called constitutionally protected independent institutions where the PNM is prepared to infiltrate, including, of course, the judiciary. What we know for sure, that is not sustainable. And so eventually, it will pit out, and like water will find its own level, because the country cannot sustain that kind of maladministration and opportunism. Let's go to the lines. A pleasant good night to welcome. Say where you're calling from, please. Pleasant good night.
Mr. Lennox.
Yes, so where you're calling from?
Mr. Lennox.
Yes, go ahead. Yes, I'm hearing you.
Wade, pleasant night to you and all those who are involved. What you doing with them set up PP on your chat?
Well, the tune
like,
does
like the Crowlody body part.
The tune does offend, and of course, people have started to, of course, become anxious.
Like the Crowlody body part, or?
Well, obviously, but
the Crowlody body part.
Yeah, this is a democratic program, so that's all right. Yes, go ahead.
Well, I think they should accommodate those on this chat, on their chat.
I hear you.
I heard that the man say, right? The Chinese, they have Chinese, said that when he gets there on that throne, it's going to be a new wave.
That is
him to know the only new wave it have is a galvanized sheet.
That's the normal rhetoric. You know that you and I are sufficiently tuned or attuned. Manning said the same thing. New. But that is, of course, to send the fool further. Further. So we know. So we have to be extremely skeptical about those kinds of what I consider to be attempts at brainwashing.
You don't put new wine in old bottles, right?
I hear you. Yes, go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear.
You don't put new wine in, right? You don't put wine in old bottles, right?
Right.
That 10 pan that they beaten there for 10 years, go on to tune.
That's right.
It ain't working again. Tell them get a new drum.
Calcutta ship
that
is the classic example.
Pan they beaten.
Yeah.
Right? Tell them get a new pan, get a new barrel and make a new pan. You understand? That kind of chat they come in with him working. My PP on your chat now, because they're disturbing the other individuals trying to make sense of the program.
Yeah. Well,
like you know to block them or?
No, I want them to respond. The others have to respond. This is a democratic program, so therefore, the others who are nourished, who are saturated with the information, they need to respond to them. I don't look at it, so I focus on the delivery every night. All right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand your point, but this program is not about having one foot in the water and one in the boat, you know. It's either you're 2 feet in the water or it's in the boat. You can't be half and half. Have a blessed night.
Thank you very much. Of course, eventually I know we will have to look at that, because we have to be practical. And the way, of course, that there is raw and unadulterated nastiness, so people, of course, engage, of course, in propaganda that for propaganda's sake to defend the indefensible, making no sense. Well, then, of course, we know that they have reached the zenith of their inability to convince anybody to do or to accept the wrong that is the PNM and the toxicity thereof. But I want to make the point before, of course, I get back to that clip. And that is all of the things that would have aided the PNM over the years, but Rowley in particular, as he deliberately, of course, engaged in the subverting of our electoral process and, of course, undermining our economy and, of course, engage in corruption, nepotism, cronyism, and, of course, all of the other what I consider to be democratic activities for self-aggrandizement and egocentrism. Egocentrism, meaning that they are centered about themselves. Whilst, of course, those on the chat, including those on the chat, nothing to get, have gotten nothing. But of course, because of tradition, they will, of course, engage to defend the indefensible. But so too, we have a duty and responsibility to respond appropriately, and more importantly, topics like this and opportunities like this are not given to us by the traditional media, whether it be TTT, CNC3, TV6, etc., and of course both visual and of course audio, both radio, in other words, and TV. So I am clear in my mind. Let them, of course, there is sufficient, in other words, persons there to respond to them, and where, of course, it is absolutely intolerable, then, of course, we take action appropriately. But let's go to the line. A pleasant good night. Welcome, of course, to our external.
A pleasant good night again to you, Lennox.
Yes.
One for the road, one for the road.
Go ahead.
Caller is more than Mapapie, no, it's Macowell. And it is spelled the normal way, no, it's Maccowell. Macowell. That's what they, that's what they are, Lennox.
Yes.
That's what they are, caller.
Good.
You understand? But you see, Lennox, the thing about it is, they come here with the propaganda. They cannot come and tell you what Rowley did for 10 years.
That's right.
They cannot come and tell you which school Rowley built, what programs Rowley brought out for the youths and them. But all they could come and talk about is Kamla drinking, Kamla gets silk, Kamla this, Kamla that. You would swear it's Kamla who muck up the country and not Rowley. I thought they just come here to learn something, but as the caller said, they just come to disrupt the chat, right? And the more they come to disrupt the chat, is the more they're going to get it.
That's
and
right.
It's not only PNMites doing it, eh? It's not only PNMites. It's some of them who get out of the brothel.
Trojan horses.
Yeah.
They're pretending, of course, to be with, but of course they're really the enemy. I know them as well. Go ahead.
Lennox, and some of them who get time off from the brothel, all of them this be coming in here. You understand, to disrupt the chat. But Lennox, I send the thing for you that I was telling you about, where they say Trinidad and Tobago will feel the squeeze as well if they sanction Maduro.
Great,
right?
Great.
I sent it for you. And also, Lennox, I find, as one of your callers was talking, or several of your callers, we know we're hearing this thing about the pan all the time.
Yes.
I find if Rowley really wants us to remember him, although we will never forget the rotten gut lion Blanco man, right? They should have put the picture of the Lekoto Jumbi on the Kota farms. That would have been more appropriate. What is the sense of putting the steel band for?
I see some people recommending
Lekoto
Kobo.
Jumbi.
I will give you a view of it maybe tomorrow night. Some people recommended Kobo. Some people recommended
I find them
Rowley
move
face,
the two birds.
all of that. Yeah.
Move the two birds and put the Kobo and the Balize, right? And put the Lekoto Jumbi, because it's the Lekoto Jumbi have him in office. Nothing else. The Lekoto Jumbi have him there.
Yes, indeed.
But let me tell you something. All who feel that evil does last forever, let them think again. And I want to tell the Macowells and them on the chat. You understand? Come and say what your government did, right?
Now, they're not
don't talk about Kamala age.
They can't.
No, because they did nothing.
You want them to get.
And only talk about Kamala age. Kamala is the only one is going to be in her 70s.
You want them to
is she the only one?
You want them to get multiple brain tumors or what?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's true. You know they can't take in much for they can't take in too much for too long.
That grey
Yeah.
matter will disintegrate. So they have to, of course, get on nasty because that is the best.
Yeah.
The best
Oh, Lennox. Today on Heavy at TC Chat was only about the weed on the windowsill, right? Like if Rowley and give them 4 male wheel plant now.
Yes.
Now they come tonight with the silk. They come tonight with she too old, right? Because them would not get old. They don't know age is a privilege, you know. They get old is a privilege.
But before you go, Miss Santa Cruz, I want to tell you that all of what they're doing only redound to the benefit of those who are logical and have the common sense and are steadfast in their commitment to national development and patriotism, because the results of the elections, even the 2015 elections, shows that the PNM is a dying breed. 2015.
Lennox, I must put up the map again behind you.
Yeah.
Put it about when we vote, come and talk crap about popular vote. All that is pertaining to the popular vote.
Only 23. 2020, in spite of what they say, 22 only. And of course, this time around, nothing for them. Especially,
nothing.
Course, that is reflected
no,
in
Lennox. Especially the Zami man, I want him to get a seat and sit down there for Kamala and them to pong him. They have to sit down in punishment. You understand? Even if it's 2 of them alone, like when you remember with the 33, even if it's only 3 of them. You understand? They have to sit down there and take it.
I want to see the backs of all of them and the destruction of it and the implosion finally of the PNM. As an institution of evil.
You remember at one time Imbert said, that is why you are there and we are here?
Yeah.
Well, we want to tell him that is why you are there and we are here.
Well, I want to tell them
they have
that's
go.
Why they are nowhere.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, they are nowhere. Thanks a lot, Lennox. Take care.
Yes, indeed. Go ahead, Mr. Sanford. No, sorry about that, but we had a healthy, of course, discourse. Yes, go ahead.
I just want to endorse what one caller was saying there.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's a total brainwashing by Eric Williams, you know.
Yeah. Total and absolute. And it continues down the ages, but there are those who are going to hang on to a dribble, and a dribble eventually, of course, its elasticity is not everlasting, so it must bust. And that is what's going to happen to them. But go ahead.
Because why I'm saying so is because we're on the campaign trail, right?
Yes.
And while on the campaign train yesterday, you know what a PNM guy told us? He said, we campaigning because, we're looking for the support, so we ask him for the support. He said, you know what was his thing when we asked for the support? He says, I'm a PNM, you know. I'm a PNM.
Right.
But I suffer, and I will remain a PNM.
Right. Well, of course, there are those who are resolved to committing suicide. And suicide, not, both physically, intellectually, and of course, economically, and their general circumstance. They don't mind getting robbed. They don't mind getting the place broken open, even though they have nothing. Because, of course, people are desperate around them. And they will be living in these communities and, of course, experiencing those on a daily basis. So, but we who are conscious and are in the majority must now, of course, understand that when rain falls, it falls on everybody's house top, and we have, of course, to see about them as well, because, of course, at the end of the day, they have to eat, drink, and, of course, clothe themselves and look for work as well, in spite of their recalcitrant at this time.
Yeah, so I just got to say that I endorse what the caller said.
Yes, okay then, my friend.
Yeah,
thank you.
right.
Yes. Oh, we have another caller. Let's go there one time. Pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor. Pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Yes, good night, night.
Yes.
Good night.
Yes, go ahead.
Well, I have to beg to disagree with the caller who wants them in parliament. That's because my view is that you can't be in parliament. You cannot be in parliament.
Mr. TCT, hold on. We have another call, I think, from St. James. Go ahead.
Yes. Yes, sir. We cannot be in parliament and be in prison at the same time where they deserve to be.
That's right.
And if not for the national deeds, their international deeds, and their close association with an international narco-terrorist, certainly should land them in some type of confined space sooner than later. And that is where, and she suggested that they deserve the pounding, I want to respectfully suggest they will get the pounding in those environments that they truly deserve.
Beautiful, man. Well said. You are really, of course, the should I say, the narrator of my heart, because I am the same view, and of course, I believe that the institution itself must be relegated to the dustbin of political history in this country as well. That's how far I would want to go. Yeah.
Of course. And one other thing I have to ask: if we look at the 2015 elections,
yes,
and compare the votes in the 2020 elections, it is obvious that over 7,000 or close to 7,000 votes went missing between 2015 and 2020 between Lavantimova West and Lavantimova East seats. Now, how is that possible? Where could have 7,000 votes gone in 5 years from, well, one area, one constituency? And all these rumors of a former Attorney General stalking marginal seats, allegedly with ballots, that type of thing.
Yes.
It is strange, you know.
Yeah.
Over close to 7,000 votes. And if we look at the Port of Spain South, you see, it's not difficult. For instance, if I take 15,000 votes from Siparia, Kamla would still win. But if I take those 15,000 votes and I surreptitiously get them into the Port of Spain electoral office, UNC win those seats. Because that's 15,000 votes we're talking about.
Yes.
So
and of course, you are lifting that example and put it in the scenario as far as the PNM is concerned. That's what they will do. Yeah.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
Votes,
that's what they have done. Yeah.
Votes from an area where you're sure you're going to win. You don't need. Ms. Basadli Sessa doesn't need 20,000 votes to win Siparia.
That's right.
She wins Siparia with 5,000, 6,000 votes.
First past the post. You know that opponents never go beyond a certain threshold. Yes, I agree with you. Yeah.
So then, where if you compare the two elections, and you will notice a drastic reduction in votes being cast.
Yeah. Well, I want you to know that that kind of analysis and what I consider to be forensic, should I say, examination of past and of course towards the future is taking place at this point in time. People don't know. As I said, I'm in a better position to talk about where we are with respect to international observers, where we are with respect, of course, to EBC. It's not by accident EBC is talking about they have not gotten their $10 million. But of course, I suppose that that is because the PNM has recognized that the people within the EBC establishment is not prepared, of course, to engage as they would like in terms of taking instructions from them to, of course, subvert and undermine the electoral process, because people like myself and others are monitoring them by way of Freedom of Information Act, by way, of course, of making certain observations. And I don't think under such intense scrutiny, the likelihood that they will come up at least to engage more of the regulations and the purpose for which they were established, and that is to say, to superintend free and fair elections. I think we will reach closer to that, and therefore the outcome should be, well, must be that as opposed to the past, be, of course, reflected in, of course, a handsome victory for the UNC, as we have seen, of course, in Tobago with respect to the THA. 14-1 for those opposed to the PNM.
Because I am quite certain that where the masters will eventually end up,
yes,
they don't want to be following.
I am
they
sure,
wouldn't want to follow them.
Yeah, but the masters will do their utmost to try to continue to influence and, of course, and pretend, of course, that they are immaculate, that they have not stolen. But, of course, I'm sure that these very people will want to know where the money came from to construct, of course, that monstrosity called Balize House, over $100 million, when, in fact, Rowley said that the party was bankrupt in 2015. I'm sure that, of course, when we speak here, you know, the truth does offend at times, but they have to go home and sleep, and they have a conscience, and at the end of the day, I suppose they will end up being so lethargic in terms of reluctantly accepting the reality that they may well not go out and vote at all. That is a strong possibility, in spite of those comments that may be being uttered, or should I say written, on the chat. I don't watch it, as I said. My focus is, of course, on delivering.
Well, my advice to those people would be to exactly what I will do. Take the red jersey and the envelope and vote for the UNC.
That's right. That's all. 5 years is not an eternity. The PNM will spread the propaganda and condition the people to believe that. I know you know where you have, but you don't know where you'll get to. Come on, that is obsolete. That is asinine. That is of course
take the jersey and the envelope.
Almost nonsensical. You know, it doesn't make sense. Yes, my friend.
Yeah,
all right.
Take the jersey and the envelope. That's your money.
Yes. Okay. All right, let me just take Mr. Trincity. Go ahead before I take.
Yes, Lennox. This is the last for the evening.
Yes, go ahead.
There's a couple. There's two little questions I want to bring forward.
Yeah.
One will be an allege. I just get some info, so I just using that word strongly.
Yes. Go ahead.
It's concerning the EBC and its wrongdoings again. I guess I would consider it as wrongdoing.
Mm-hmm.
Is that they have decided to maybe coming down to the wire, split some of the constituency. So in other words, then, as rightfully your caller was just saying a while ago, or you was just making a remark on it just a while ago, is that where they will have a lot of votes that they have stronghold on, it will be considered an east and a west, that type of thing. So it's going to be coming back again. They're going to introduce like two more seats or three more seats.
Just a couple.
I don't know how.
Just a couple. There's a report that would normally be submitted just before the following election. That has been submitted to Parliament. Some 4 constituencies, I believe, some 4 of them, I believe, or 14 of them have been either renamed or their boundaries have been adjusted. So that has been done already. So I don't want you to see coming down to the wire, because that is established. That is being examined, of course, by people like myself and other experts to look at where the advantage is to the PNM, just as how we did it with respect, of course, to the electoral districts in Tobago, which worked well, even though, of course, the EBC tried to, of course, pursue the intention of the PNM, and they lost, of course, spectacularly. I talk about the PNM lost spectacularly. That is expected to be the same in Trinidad. So I'm saying that
I
was already done.
I agree with you. I'm okay, but I stand corrected, and I agree with you. So I definitely will be. I mean, we're going to be voting them out and wiping them out entirely.
Yes.
So the next question is, remember, again, you could correct me on this, right? So because my memory is fake. Did they get some any money or anybody out there? Did they get any money for them to fix up the zoo or something like that? They had intentions, or did they receive money to fix?
Amphitheater, and one wondered. I think it's under UDCUT, and one wondered why that level of expenditure. Who go in there and listen to lecture or even cinema on animals, etc. But it's part of the profligacy of this administration, and to put monies, of course, in the pockets of those who they prefer, and rather, I can tell you categorically, the company that was constructing Balize House, it has now moved just east of the flyover, and they are, I think it's either a HGC facility or some displaced persons facility they are constructing there, and the same company is there right now as we speak. But if they believe we don't know, in the fullness of time, of course, we'll expose all. But the point I am making is that is the job of UDICOT. And where is UDICOT? Under the auspices of the office of the Prime Minister, which, of course, Stuart Young will inherit, and the status quo will remain. Why? Because, of course, that is the institution that, of course, is providing all the kickbacks for this administration, and they want direct control of it under the office of the Prime Minister. Prior to that, it used to be either under Works or some other ministry, but the Prime Minister has taken charge of it. And of course, we know too, because the scamp call, of course, Noel Garcia is in charge of that. I say so without fear of contradiction. You can't do me nothing. Garcia, you're a blasted scamp. I know you to be so. Go ahead, my friend.
Well, yeah, and from a final thing now, Miss Sandra Cruz really made a point. Like putting the two birds on the coat of arms as Kobo, and putting his face, as the
face. Yes, I saw some of that. I will put a montage together. And of course present it to you all.
You call him. You usually call him by his name, like the rapscallion and the Colonel Conks and all them things. Where it had together we aspire, together we achieve. That's where you had to put it down on the bottom of that now. So I'm waiting tonight for you to finish off and addressing this Prime Minister as his correct name, what is being said for. All right, Lennox. Good night.
Friend. Yes, indeed. Go ahead, Miss Arima. Sorry about that.
Yes, Lennox. It's after 10.
Yes,
Let me see how
I realize that 11 minutes past.
I could say what I want to say.
Yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
I want to try and make it short. No, this thing where he wants, what they call it? Oh gosh, he want the youth, when they're applying for the ID card, they must present an address where they live in this area where they live where they live for 5 years. I'm trying to remember all the requirements. They must have a utility bill from the landlord or even their parents, right?
Yeah.
No, these children, I will call them children, young people, who going to apply for these ID cards, and they are citizens of this country.
Oh, yes, indeed. They ought to be. They would have had a birth paper. That's the basis on which they would gain the information initially, yeah.
How the hell you want all these things? They ain't leave no country to come here, They're born here. And the strategy he using is to frustrate the youth, because we know how the youth feel about voting. They don't see it important. Some young people, especially the delinquent ones, they don't have an ID card, or they will have it whenever they feel to have it, and all these things. So he know when he do all this kind of thing, it will frustrate the youth, and it will be less voters. So it's the youth he attacking. And I will tell you this.
Right.
And if you don't believe me, I want you to get on to the activist for the Venezuelans called Yesenia Gonzalez. His gangman friend did a similar thing with the youth in that country, where it had millions of new voters to register, and he frustrated the process. And he had promised the Americans that he's going to have a free and fair election. Election day is not only the free and fair part, with observers, is from all this. You see that whole kind of process they want to, they want to put forward, which is, I would say, illegal, right? Because they are citizens of this country. You hear? Yes. They are citizens. They ain't come here to get all these requirements. They're out of place. Yeah. They're breaking the law. That's wrong. I say so. Will you ever hear that?
Yeah.
Will you ever hear that?
Yeah.
What if they're living in the bush? Up on a hill and a mountain, it have any lamp pole to say, you know, they have a lamp pole number for address?
I take your point.
Right?
I take your point. Yeah, it's very vivid.
So we have to investigate these things. Yes. He following his gangman friend, and it's all that he did.
Yes.
And obstruct the whole voting thing.
Yeah.
And this one coming here with that.
Yeah.
Look here now.
I hear you, my friend.
Whatever happened, I say damn good, yes. Everything I just had to say damn good.
I hear you, my friend. I hear you. Of course, I want to tell these young people across the country, specifically, of course, targeting the Laventils. The country you save will be your own. And you have a duty if you are 18 years right now. You have a window of opportunity, of course, to get your ID if you didn't get it. And if you will be turning 18, maybe next couple of months, 2 months, 3 months, because there is a cutoff period, you must register to vote. The country you save will be your own. And we have, of course, a group of people in office who are prepared, of course, to not give you a break, but to give you all kinds of Nancy story of how they care about you, etc. But when we look at the 13,000 that comes out of school every year in July for the last 10 years, multiply that by 10 and you will understand what we're talking about. Thousands of you, no jobs. But see crime as a way of life, and of course subjected, of course, to the vicissitude thereof. Because you could lose your life, you can lose your family, and of course all kinds of negatives can occur. So get out there and go to the EBC offices and register to vote, and get out there and protect and solve and salvage your country. Your country depends on you at this point in time. A pleasant good night. Welcome.
Good night, Mr. Lennox. Good night, Trinidad and Tobago.
Good night.
With regards to the registration or getting the ID card, that is nothing new. The reason for them asking for all these requirements is that they want to know what zone that you have to be in order for them to send out your voting card and all of that. So they would know what constituency you fall under. Yes, the process is a bit frustrating, but this is nothing new. This is something that has happened for years. For example, when I was a teenager and I went for my ID card, I went with my mom, a birth paper, a utility bill, and I was able to register and get my
utility bill. I was a youth at one time too, but I know of no utility
bill. Well, in my time, I'm not that old, but when I was a teenager, that is what I had to do. I remember having to
work utility bill too,
with a utility bill.
All right,
yeah,
I'll find out. I'll do a discrete investigation at the EBC just to make sure that, and ask why that is required.
That's the reason. That's how they know what zone to put you in, so they know what to send your polling card. With regards
you could send that without having. If you say that you're living XYZ, that is where you are. But
anybody could say anything. They would just want something in order to solidify your actual location.
All right.
With regards to the opportunities, right? I mean, oh gosh, you're saying that you're making way for the richer to get richer, for them to make opportunities to the poor. What exactly we hire you for? We didn't hire the rich, we hire you.
They have abandoned us and still getting paid.
Still want pay.
Still want increase pay. Yeah.
Because the rich is getting richer, yes, and they're creating some opportunities, but when you look at what it is they are presenting, people working for the bare minimum, they can't build any generational wealth on that.
That's right.
You understand? So all these young people that go in and studying all these years, studying so much money on all the materials they need to study to come out with this degree and that degree and the other, and then you can't find a job to pay you. I went through that as when I came out of school, having to go to OJT and working for minimal funds, you understand, until I found a job that, was satisfactory for me. But not everybody has that opportunity. This is why so many youths are leaving Trinidad and Tobago. And then we're talking about the brain drain. This is the reason why they are not providing the opportunities. And then for those of them, it is beyond me to understand how somebody could leave school and cannot read.
Yeah,
right?
I too, boy.
No,
that's a real
that's an
phenomenon.
indictment on our education system.
Yeah.
Right? Even if the parent is unable to help the child, right? You are trained in order to teach this child. Yeah. So not all parents have academic skills to be able to teach their children English and math and all these kinds of things. So when they go to school, they're supposed to be able to groom these children and work with these children. Yeah. Right? We have these children moving from grade to grade, standard to standard, form to form, and they're not performing. Where's the performance evaluation for these teachers?
Illiterate. And
this is crazy.
Yeah. It's
this
baffling.
is crazy what is going on in Trinidad and Tobago. The kind of money that has passed through this country, we're supposed to be a lot further along in terms of development. Right? We're talking about $3 billion unaccounted for, and up to now, the Minister of Finance cannot be held to account
of what we spend
to answer what it has happened to our money. We don't know what is going on with any of our assets, the pitch lake, the port, everything, all these non-disclosure agreements. If we, as the citizens, are the employer and they are our employees, they are parliamentarians, they are our servants, who exactly are they serving? Because they don't seem to be serving our best interests, but theirs, right?
Yes.
Now, I made a comment on a show earlier today.
Go ahead.
And just please give me the opportunity to clear it up
when
I spoke about Mr. Manning. Right? I mean, oh gosh, boy. When I say I feel disappointed, right? His father, regardless of what we want to say about the PNM and the development of the country, his father was still a visionary. And for him to stand by silently while you watch waiters happen to this country, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, after somebody says that we all have supposed to have a spirit of forgiveness and look at the bigger picture, but look at what happened to this country and just the silence from all of them. How could we trust them with our lives? We saw what happened during COVID. Our lives were literally threatened. No job, vaccinate to operate. The paperwork has come out on these things and not even an apology. Thousands of people have been injured.
Sure, right. And still are dying.
Yes.
Yeah, they have something called lung cancer, LONG, lung cancer. Long COVID, LONG. But go ahead.
We still promoting this. Mr. Diaz and continues to sit in that office and things just going from bad to worse. Simple basic necessities like gauze and certain medications that are supposed to be in the supply to see about citizens that are ailing. Right? Yes. We have open borders. You're talking about who can sell OPV. Yet all our vessels right now are not working. We have unmanned borders. Anybody can walk in and out of Trinidad and Tobago. And then we want to know why crime going like this. Who am I to blame? I mean, we as citizens all are part of it, but oh gosh, man, if we hire somebody to do a job, if this was a private enterprise, right, a business.
They get fired long time. They get fired from day one.
Fail.
Before they finish the first term, they go through. If it's a private enterprise, yes, I agree with you.
And we have people making excuses for this, while we are the ones that paying for this. Our children have to pay for this.
Yeah.
no accountability. I really hope that when the next administration comes in, that they do a forensic audit, because we have to make an example of these people.
Well said, well said.
That walking, you know, they're not toe in the line. We need to string them up, because this is ridiculous what is happening here. This cannot be okay. Our youth are looking on, and it can't be, this kind of Robin Hood, and then they engage to the poor. I don't know even what to call this. This is
not Robin Hood. That's devilish. Devilish.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my
Luciferan.
goodness.
Yes. All right then. Thank you very much.
That makes certain statements. Look, we have an inauguration that happened today. Donald J. Trump is now the president of the United States of America, something that so many people have been fearing. I understand exactly where he is coming from. He's going to try his best to fix America. All other countries need to put the
house in order. Yeah. I agree. All right then.
Our support system, and we go on and we say, boy, Trinidad and Tobago, pray, because it's a miracle we need.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much. Let me give that caller a round of applause. I think it's the best tone on which we could end this program. Thank you very, very, very much. Very passionate, of course, very factual, of course, and imbued or saturated with a lot of reality events that is Trinidad and Tobago. But you young people, I trust that you listened. I trust that you inculcate. I trust that you will now take action, because after inculcation and after analysis and rationalization and assimilation, it's now action. And the action is that no matter how tedious the process is, go and get your ID cards. It will, of course, be useful for getting a bank account as well, for getting your first salary, if it's even by check. But of course, even to get it, you will have to have some kind of what is called picture identity in order to treat with that. But of course, I'm motivated, and maybe I may well ask that particular caller to assist me with the matinee program that we want to focus on young people in particular, and in areas such as Laventille. Because I believe, for example, every young man or woman in these communities must at least get their license, for example, their driver's license, their permit. Because they're living, of course, in an urban environment, a concrete jungle, where, of course, transportation is critical, and you could always get a job with, of course, having a license. So you don't need to, of course, or at least you could wait, because you could get something to eat by way of legitimate work. But let's go to the line. A final call. Oh, gosh, final call. A pleasant good night. Welcome.
Good night, Dr. Lennox.
Good night, my
Lennox
friend. Yes, indeed.
Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, good night, Trinidad and Tobago and worldwide. My contribution is that the government, right? PNM is a clique of people who just studying the self, all right? And like the three blind mice, the followers, like the three blind mice. You understand?
Yeah, I hear you.
But so, yeah, PNM is a party who just study the self, and once PNM and they see about them, the rest of the population, them don't have no time with you. That's how I see it.
Well, and of course we have to let them know that we are responsible for their very existence, and of course
that's right.
And to meet it, and to of course extrapolate a little more. The Laventilles in particular are directly responsible for their existence today, but they will make Laventille believe it is not so, and therefore, of course, Laventille instead is beholden to them, the small group that is decision-making position at Balize House as they haggle for position and so on, and they don't care about the infrastructure, don't care about the job opportunities that are lacking, don't care about, of course, the economic circumstance, don't care about the gangs, the youths of gravitation to crime, the guns, and you could go on, and we must teach them a lesson on this occasion. All right?
All right, my brother.
Okay, then.
Yeah, my brother.
Thanks for calling. Yes, people, of course, we have come to the end, I think. Oh boy, I'll try to finish. Let me just finish that one because it's already 10:30, and I promise never to go beyond 10:30 because so we have just about a minute or so in this script, so let's finish it.
Police station in the capital port of Spain. His identity has
Yes, indeed, of course, this is about, of course, the international
not been made
news
public.
about
While he was leaving the police station, there was an attempt on his life. The gang leader managed to survive, but one of his crew members was killed. On Sunday, there was a reprisal. 5 people were gunned down inside a shop. These incidents have the potential to start off a vicious
People, this is international news,
cycle of killings. That is why Trinidad and Tobago's government has declared an emergency.
At this stage, the government has taken the decision. There is not going to be any curfew. That decision is because the targeting of this national public state of emergency is on those who engage in criminal activity with criminal intent.
Trinidad and Tobago's military has been deployed. The police have been given enhanced powers. They can search people and property without a warrant. They can detain someone for 2 days on suspicion alone. The suspects can also be denied bail. All of this isn't just a result of this weekend's events. Trinidad and Tobago is a hotspot for gang violence and murder. The Caribbean nation has one of the highest murder rates in the world. It has only about 1.5 million residents, but this year the official homicide count hit 623. It's the worst on record. This alarming figure was part of the reason for the emergency declaration.
So people, of course, there you have it, of course, and that is international, and of course, the nonsense that they're talking always, when they tell you jump, as I say, you stand up, because, of course, they said that they have no curfew because they don't want, of course, to affect business. Well, two vessels were turned away in Tobago. Cruise ships. They said don't land there, they have state of emergency. And of course, since this has gone all over the world, I mean the potential investors are saying don't come here, and maybe the supply chain and all may be affected because you have, of course, these governments, whether in North America, United States, Canada, of course, or in Europe, whether it be United Kingdom, Germany, France, etc., are telling their residents by way of what is called advisories, international advisories, don't go to Trinidad. And if you go, of course, don't go to Nelson Street and Laventille, etc. Yes, that is reality caused by Rowley and their ineptitude and their asinine and, of course, their what I consider to be a total state of intellectual, cerebral, and, of course, cognitive decline. All of them a bunch of criminals, and all of them must pay the price in terms of the criminal law as well as the civil law. We won back the resources that were stolen from us. Have a wonderful rest of the night. God bless. Don't forget, of course, tomorrow morning, the ground report, Andy, Mikey, and myself from 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock. Around 7 o'clock, of course, we will be joined by Gael, the Caribbean, where, of course, we will be communicating with our Caribbean friends. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
The Trinidad, a luxury liner, sailing the Caribbean Sea, with an old captain named Eric Williams. Oh yes, it's smooth and free, but sadly Eric Williams passed away. Someone turn the bridge over to a captain named Chambers. Me blood crawl, things start to fall. Hold me head when I sail a fall. Captain, this ship is sinking. Captain, the seas are rough. Oh yes, we gas tank almost empty, no electricity. We oil pressure reading low. Shall we abandon ship or shall we stay on it and perish slow? We don't know, we don't know. Captain, you tell me what to do. Whoa, whoa. The Trinidad, oh, she was a beauty with wealth that few surpassed. And in her day, she sailed majestically. There were few in her class. Faithfully, she fulfilled her sailor's need. Some were overpowered by greed, and so they pilfered slow. Some took bite, bulk, and go. Now she looked dull, she's at a lull. She could barely sit on her hull. Captain, the ship is sinking. Captain, the seas are rough. Oh yes, we gas tank almost empty, no electricity. We oil pressure reading low. Shall we abandon ship or shall we stay on it? And
since you take over as Prime Minister, is plenty pressure. We have to suffer, and you will do nothing better. Rowley really have to go. Oh, Rowley really have to go. Oh, Rowley really have to go. Since you come in power, you is a big failure. Collapse the economy and do nothing for we. What you have to show, we don't really know. What you have to show, we don't really know. Sorry, Trinidad and Tobago, but Rowley really have to go. Oh, so Rowley really have to go. Oh, so Rowley really have to go. The crime rate is out of hand, they're shooting up we blessed land. We need more protection.